Let's now focus on the Afcfta, that's the Africa Free Continental Free Trade Area. And that's coming from a report by the International Monetary Fund revealing that a successful African Free Trade Area implementation could unlock major benefits for Africa in terms of income, jobs, amongst other things. The departmental paper published Friday, May 5, examined the prospect for African trade integration in the context of a changing world amid the climate crisis, risks of geopolitical fragmentation, technological progress, and the continent's prospective demographic growth. The 64-page document found that comprehensive reforms combined with the Afcfta implementation could increase the median merchandise trade flow between African countries by 53% and with the rest of the world by 15%. And this would consequently raise the real per capita GDP of the median African country by over 10%. Well, some interesting prospects here, but how do we bridge the gap between the current realities in Africa and especially Nigeria and the future of the Afcfta agreement? Joining us to break this down is Olusegun Elemo, Executive Director, Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative, PLSI. Good morning and thank you for joining us, Olusegun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Happy to join.
Well, over 2 years after the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, that's the Afcfta, we see it came into force on January 1, 2021, and after that, 2 years after the implementation, we still see Nigeria continuing to lag behind in making the trade agreement operational. What, in your opinion, are the hurdles here?
Well, thank you for the question. I think there's one thing that we need to get very clearly here, that the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, now signed by about 54 countries outside Eritrea, is to say that the biggest market on the continent today is Nigeria, and that much of the African countries that signed the agreement will certainly be hoping to enter into the Nigerian market. I recall that even at the time when the agreement was being discussed and signed by a few African countries, Nigeria had some sort of delay.
Hesitation.
Because even before the agreement, the negotiation began, Nigeria had been the dumping ground for many of the African countries. And that is due to where Nigeria is positioned in the sub-region, and then the fact that we have so much expanse of land that is unmanned and our borders are somewhat porous. So Nigeria was struggling with, battling with that economic crisis where many of the African countries saw the country as the dumping ground for every and all kind of manner of products. As such, the government at the time needed to look at the agreement closely and see how Nigeria is able to leverage the agreement to then expand its export potential. But like I said, in as much as we're going to gain from it, Nigeria as a country, the market is still small relatively to what we have internally. So I believe the agreement itself is something that is to a better advantage of other African countries than it is for Nigeria. I'm not saying that Nigeria will not benefit from it, but I'm saying that other countries will benefit more because we own the largest market on the continent. And I think that needs to be put in context.
All right. It looks like you totally agree with the delay that happened. Of course, we saw the whole agreement by some other African countries happen in 2018, March 2018, and then it took a while for President Muhammadu Buhari to append his signature, saying he needed to do more consultations. And then that signature eventually was appended in July 2019. Looks like you totally agree with that, even though we saw criticisms from different quarters, including former President Olusegun Obasanjo, saying that there was no need for the delay.
Well, not like I totally agree with the delay, but see, you have to act from a position of strength. And if the country at the time was now reviewing the agreement, looking at it clause by clause, and looking at where, our players are going to be able to leverage the agreement to then expand their businesses, I think it was good that the country, looked at that agreement carefully. I mean, there was no point rushing to signing, an agreement that would be difficult to implement. I mean, we're still even discussing implementation of the agreement, even after 2 years. So it was important that, the country reviewed, the agreement, like I said, over many years. And then this agreement is now coming at this time. It was important to look at it closely and see, where, what are the merits and the demerits of signing into the agreement. Fortunately, the agreement has been signed, but we're now discussing implementation. And again, it goes to show the commitments, the political commitments of the players in the continent to really pursue this agreement head on. And then again, whether the private sector players are, ready. For me, is that even for instance, in the Nigerian market, the private sector players are still struggling with maximizing the market potential internally, before we begin to look at intra-Africa, trade activities.